Like a mighty, mighty boss tune.
Huh?
Mighty, mighty boss tune. Look him up. You'll see it.
Thank you very much, and welcome this evening on this, what has been a beautiful Wednesday in Ascension Parish, Thursday in Ascension Parish, excuse me, can't keep up with the day. And it's been a gorgeous day, and we are here for this regularly scheduled meeting of the Ascension Parish Council. At this time, I would like to ask Joel Robert if he will
Yes, ma'am.
lead us in the invocation and the pledge, and if you'll remain standing after the invocation for the pledge.
Jesus, Lord, thank you for bringing us all here this evening. Thank you for filling us with your wisdom, your peace. Help us communicate all sides of the issues and be fruitful in what we do tonight. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Councilman Robert.
Yes, ma'am.
Appreciate that. I know I caught you off guard there.
Well, I apologize for kind of talking.
No problem, no problem. All righty. And I'm going to have to ask everybody to indulge me while I get my glasses, or I'm going to be having a hard time reading what's on this agenda. Naturally. All right. There are no chairs additions this evening. In the roll call, there are 2 or 3 folks absent, Councilman Turner and Councilman Ogeron. I think everybody else has arrived. So we only have those 2 missing. There is a public comment sign-in period. If you have an item on the agenda about which you would like to have your voice heard, please go to the podium, get one of those green or red cards, fill it out, give it to Cinnamon. She will direct it to me, and you'll be called on at the appropriate time to let us hear your thoughts on a particular agenda item. We are through the housekeeping and on to the parish president's report. Good evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the administration, we pride ourselves on the team concept. So we thought we would mix it up a little bit, and we would have some of our directors and managers present some of the great things that we're doing and what they are in charge of and leading in different efforts to move our parish forward. So tonight we'd like to honor Mr. Ricky Compton to come up and do a presentation for the parish president's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lamar. I think that's a great idea. Ricky, if it's 97 pages, you're in trouble.
So you just ruined my first joke. John told me I had to punch this thing up a little bit.
Well, I like to get the first laugh. You can get the last one.
So again, my name is Ricky Compton. I am the Director of Planning and Facility Management for Ascension Parish. This evening, I'm going to just take you through a quick presentation of what I'm working on currently and what we're looking to accomplish moving forward. The first item is grounds maintenance, and most of these ideas were covered at the Finance Committee meeting last week, but I'd already started working on this presentation, and I like the slides too much to just erase them. By setting the standards for level of service at the parks and facilities being mowed by a contractor, we'll be able to improve our frequency of services at the other locations, repeating the mantra of turf, trash, and toilets. We estimate the parish cost to mow and maintain each of these locations, represented in green, is almost $250,000 compared to the quotes we received, represented in tan. The parish will be saving approximately $150,000 over the course of a calendar year, represented in teal. With regards to facility maintenance and upkeep costs, we're still in the gathering data phase of this process. Between the pandemic and the continued work interruptions with all the storms, we're lagging behind a bit. By identifying key performance indicators such as equipment failures or types and costs of different work orders, we can begin tracking the amount of time and the dollars spent, as well as the equipment utilized at each individual location. This will all be possible and trackable once we move to an electronic work order type of system. As hard as it is to believe, as it may be, it's 2020 and we're still using forms in triplicate to request, direct, and complete work orders. Thankfully, we're no longer utilizing Morse code. That's a John Diaz joke. Our current maintenance budget process involves the maintenance department determining a list of projects for the coming year, and those costs are divided across all departments that contribute to the maintenance fund based on their percentage of total building square footage and a share of personnel cost. This process tends to distribute costs unevenly, meaning a particular department may not have any major project scheduled in any particular budget year, but they'll still share the costs. Again, our goals are to ensure that projects are planned, budgeted, and funded appropriately moving forward. We simply need to look at some of our facilities that have been neglected over the past several decades to see how these costs have ballooned and are going to be even more expensive than had we simply performed adequately. And if any of you guys would like to take a tour of the jail, I'll be happy to come show you what I'm talking about. The utility cost analysis is a tedious task that I'd love to figure out a way to automate, but I'm currently combing through the Munis system, pulling out the data for each facility and building a spreadsheet to better understand our monthly and yearly utility costs at each location. I've currently identified at least 38 separate locations, not including recreation. I've also been performing a similar analysis of all of our park locations as well. This data set will enable us to track cost savings as we implement new technologies or identify abnormalities in the monthly billings. The cells identified in red jumped out because of the 360 to 500% increase in costs from a $20 per month water bill to a $102 water bill. As I investigated this further, it was noted that the park was booked for a birthday party that included a water slide. However, at this location, we don't collect a rental fee or charge for the use of parish water, something we may need to look into at all of our parish parks. Which brings us to what we're most excited about, implementing a new vision for Ascension Parish Recreation, which we've called the Mind and Body Initiative. This project began with getting a better understanding of our recreation needs by creating a list of all parish parks and the features located within each one. With that data, I was able to compare how we stand up statistically to the national average, as well as communities that are similarly sized to ours. Not surprisingly, we are deficient in many areas. Additional efforts will need to be made to ensure we're providing adequate recreation amenities equitably across the parish. Let me give you a better idea of what these statistics actually look like. This sort of data analysis will enable us in future budget cycles to justify when we want to add parkland or park features. Similar to Council Melançon's golf score, the Ascension Parish graph represents a higher count than you're looking for of residents per basketball court. This graph represents that Ascension Parish has 24,589 residents per tennis court, as compared to other communities of our size, averaging one court per 5,714 residents. This is more of a John Diaz type of graph. This graph represents the number of full-time equivalent staff per 100,000 population. Again, we are deficient. We're trying to figure out if it's a budgetary shortfall, if it's a manpower shortfall, if it's a number of parks. There's a lot of questions we need to get to. We're just now getting into that part of the analysis phase, and surely we'll be bringing all that to you. We've also implemented a park and playground inspection program with a goal of performing inspections regularly to identify deficiencies before they become safety hazards or eyesores. Another exciting opportunity awaits when the new courthouse opens. The clerk of court will be vacating the armory in Donaldsonville, making approximately 14,000 square feet available for redevelopment in downtown Donaldsonville. For those of you that aren't familiar with this facility, it's located in the heart of downtown Donaldsonville in front of the old courthouse and features a full-size gym. There's an area that could be utilized as an indoor shooting range that could be converted to a batting and pitching area, as well as several classroom-type spaces that we could utilize for a computer lab, arts and crafts space, yoga, CrossFit, jazzercise, or exercise. There's also a small kitchen space that we could consider utilizing if the right programming opportunity comes along. Our possibilities are literally endless, and we're looking forward to getting this program moving. Additionally, we're looking to utilize a holistic approach to addressing concerns that have been identified in the Lady of the Lake study that has indicated that obesity is our #1 issue related to health, as well as how the National Recreation and Park Association has several initiatives dedicated to mental health and wellness. We're efforting to create a New Year's resolution for Ascension Parish Recreation to provide an activity at one of our facilities at least 5 days a week. Beginning in January, we recognize this is a tall task that won't be easy, but without a goal in mind, recreation would continue to be just a grounds maintenance department. By working with the health department, we can achieve our New Year's resolution goal of offering at least one program of at least one of our recreation facilities, a minimum of 5 days a week. Over the last 3 years, mental health has spent $1 million less than previous years and currently has almost a $10 million balance. Working with the mental health department, we can work on implementing initiatives. Oh, see this technology? See, John made me fancy this thing up.
But we are saving power, it said.
That is true.
That's good.
There it is. This concept has evolved as time affects the high-scope Perry Preschool study through age 40, which was begun in 1962, and I've given you all a copy of that in case you want to review it. The study, in simplified terms, shows what a huge impact early childhood education has on a person, which in turn has an effect on your community. The difference in those persons that received early childhood education and those that didn't are tremendous. The study also showed how for every dollar invested in early childhood education, there was a return of $12.90. Between savings in education, taxes on earnings, welfare savings, or quite simply the huge savings on the reduced amount of crime, where a large amount of money is spent on incarceration. We've already begun discussing exciting opportunities with the Ascension Parish Library Board, the Health Unit and Mental Health, the School Board, the Parish Sheriff, and local industries to work in partnership on the Mind and Body Initiative. We see this endeavor as a building of a collaborative effort across multiple agencies to do the greatest amount of good for the greatest number of people at the lowest possible cost. Are there any questions before I enter part 2? I'm just kidding, this is the end.
Any questions, gentlemen? Mr. Mason?
Thank you, Ms. Ricky, I was curious, a few of my constituents are asking about walking trails. I know City of Gonzales has one around baseball fields, and I think we have something at the park out on Stringer Bridge. I don't know what it's called now. I think it's Butch Gore Park. Is it Butch Gore Park?
Sandoval Park?
Sandoval Park, excuse me. I know that there's kind of one out there, and I just wonder if that was something that you guys were kind of looking into, or if that's something that could be on the agenda in the future.
Absolutely. So, in Hilton Head, South Carolina, where you've got a gazillion golf holes, the #1 amenity is walking trails. It is our goal to implement some form of walking trail at every park where it's physically possible. I know we have a walking trail at Lowry Park. There's a walking trail at Sandoval Park. There's a walking trail at Duplessis Park. Oak Grove probably isn't big enough, but yes, every single park. We want to do one around Prairieville Park. Butch Gore is a great opportunity. Paula Park has a great opportunity to continue the trail that exists in a partiality, but yes, walking trails are a high priority. I've talked with the administration. It's a big, big picture, but we have a lot of bayous out there. At some point, if we could figure out a way to connect a library to a school, to a park, to a playground, to those kinds of features with trails down those bayous where we already have a right-of-way that's significant, that's something I would love to get to. I would love to get a trail down Highway 44 to get to the levee and create a loop, come back down 22, and have something that connects to something.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Just one.
Mr. Lambert?
Ricky, I was noticing, you said it's Lemonville is the only one that we're not collecting a deposit, any type of rental fee?
No, sir. There's multiple parks that we don't collect a rental fee. We take a reservation to ensure that they're not double booked, but that we don't collect a fee. There's several parks.
I was thinking we put something in place. This has been a while back. I thought we had something in place that took care of that. I don't know why it's not.
I believe it's
What
the
is
majority
what's
of the
going on
parks.
with the telephones in the guys' area? Is that computer? What is that about?
Again, that's an anomaly that I discovered, is that we're paying, what is that, $100 or whatever it is a month for a
It's
phone bill.
almost $200.
Yeah, we don't even know if we have a phone there. So that's part of the investigation, is to go out. We didn't know if maybe it was an alarm system, maybe it was something, but again, they're bills that are being paid, and now we're going in and figuring out what they are and why they are and what we can tweak. It's a business line as well. It's got multiple
I
lines.
would be, I'd be interested in to know why. I thought we had put something in place to, for the rentals of each, facility.
Yes, sir. I believe it's the parks on the West Bank that we don't collect a rental fee
Okay.
other than the pavilion.
Okay.
Mr. Lawler?
Yeah, I echo what Councilman Lambert said, is I was under the impression that we were collecting fees. Can you let us know what we need to do? I think we just need to go through recreation and repass an ordinance to collect it. I'm kind of shocked that I know it's well before your time.
Historically, if you're going to collect a fee to rent a pavilion for a birthday party, it's going to be minimal.
Absolutely.
The question becomes is, will they answer truthfully when you ask them, are you going to have a water slide? Because that's where the impact is. And if they don't answer truthfully, then you have to have somebody on the weekend who goes out and monitors that. So that's going to be something that we'll have to put a plan in place, that if we're truly going to hope to collect those fees, you got to have a way to monitor it, because people are not going to follow the rules.
But I think if we're collecting fees at all of our other facilities, collecting across the board at every facility, it really shouldn't take an ordinance. If we're doing it some, we should just be doing that. So I would talk to the director
No,
of recreation and make sure that gets done.
When I say we're not collecting a fee, so if somebody wants to have a birthday party at Paula Park, we reserve the pavilion for them, but there's not necessarily a fee to rent a pavilion. And so I honestly don't know the answer. So I need to go look at the ordinance that you guys passed to see if that is across the board. But I'm telling you, on the West Bank, we don't charge fees to reserve parks for parties.
Just take a good hard look at that,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Compton. I do believe that my recollection is that we did pass something that should be available to you at some point. And that was, it's important that if certain people are paying, then everybody needs to pay. And I think it's not a problem to send somebody out on Saturday to make sure there isn't a water slide that's not being paid for. I think that's fair. Okay, anything else? Mr. Malasa?
Over the last few months, I've had a few people email me bike trails on the levee, like they have in EBR. Is that something that is potentially in our future?
I would love to simply say, absolutely. The problem is, when we've looked at grants, the grants tell you that they want the trail to connect to something. It can't simply be a dead end on one end and a dead end on the other. And so when we started talking about it, we said, well, if we could create a loop. So, the 44 corridor where they're building the roundabout up by Conway, whatever it is, the subdivision up there, we told them we want a sidewalk around that roundabout. And they were like, why? Nobody's ever going to walk. Well, of course they won't if you never build a sidewalk. So we told DOTD, build a sidewalk, and if at some point we can connect to it, we would love to go all the way down 44 so we can get to the river. And once we get to the river, then yeah, let's get something on the levee to get down past the Homeless House, past the other plantation house, come around the corner to 22 where we can be in Darrow, and then come back up 22 with a trail, a sidewalk, a bike lane, something, and create a full loop there. So I would love to tell you yes, absolutely, but it's a big picture. We're going to have to figure out how we're going to get there.
One more thing, that was an erroneous claim on my golf score.
I would certainly love to see that happen. I love walking. I do so for my health. I walk somewhere between 5 and 7 miles a day, and it's not nearly as good on a treadmill as it would be on a loop. So I would love to see that. In fact, I started that walking process during COVID in a park in Alabama when I was quarantined over there. And they had miles and miles of beautiful trails, and it was really easy to get into walking for distance. Now I'm back in my house and I'm having to walk for distance on my treadmill and watch the news the whole time. So for goodness sakes, get us something going like that. That would be a big help to all of our citizens, and particularly when obesity is a major factor in the health issues that our citizens experience. So we would like to have that accomplished. Are there any other questions?
Yes,
Mr. Thomas?
yeah. Mr. Compton, I hear that the parks in Donaldsonville, they don't have they don't have to pay. And I hear my colleagues indicating that the if there is, it should be granted all across the board, and things should be as it should be with everything. If we're gonna, allow ourselves to do the charging for all of the parks, also that go along with everything else. In other words, and what I'm saying is, there's certain things can go on with certain people, so to speak, and the rules are for everybody, not for some people. So we want to make sure that it goes for everybody.
Okay.
All right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All righty. Ricky, anything else you want to add?
No, ma'am, I'm good.
Well, we thank you for your wonderful presentation, use of technology, and a couple of good jokes. That was at John Diaz's expense. That was great stuff. Thank you.
Fantastic report.
Thank you so much. Mr. President, thank you for allowing your dynamic members of your team to show off their stuff here. We appreciate it. All right, at this time, we will head into the presentations. Item number 6. I invited Mr. Gasper Jaffici to be here. I'm sure that most of you who drive up Worthy Road have noticed that there's a gorgeous, absolutely beautiful courthouse under construction there. And it was my pleasure to go through that building the other day for the first time in quite some time. And so I asked Gasper to come and tell us where we are and what's next.
Madam Chairwoman and members of the council, it's my pleasure to be here and to update you on where we are with that project and to invite you on a tour of the building. I'm going to send some dates to Cinnamon and see if we can get everyone to get together and agree on a time. If not, you can always call me, and I will be happy to take anyone individually through the building at any time. So just give me a call. But in the meantime, I'll send some dates to Cinnamon and see if we can settle on a time.
Wonderful.
Date to go through. It'll probably be later in the day when all the workmen are gone, and we can walk freely through the building. I think you'll be impressed with that. I want to give you some important dates. These dates were presented to the committee, the courthouse committee yesterday, and some of the more important dates. The council chamber completion date right now is November 18th, just a little over a month from today. Practically speaking, after Thanksgiving, probably. And in terms of using it, you certainly won't want to use that, I believe, until the security is in place in the front and all. But just in terms of what the contractor's expectations are, is to complete that building around Thanksgiving week. The substantial completion for the entire project is scheduled to be November 20th of this year and next month. And the certificate of occupancy, assuming that the fire marshal clears everything, is November 23rd. That is the Monday of Thanksgiving week. That is a day when Bridget Hanna and her clerk of court staff intend to move in to the building, move all their whatever equipment and files and everything into that building the week of Thanksgiving. That's been planned for quite some time. It's been coordinated with the contractor, quite a few little hoops to jump through to make all this happen, to get partial occupancy of that portion of the building. But the building should be substantially complete by that day anyway. The judge's move-in is expected to be December 3rd. There will not, however, be any trials or any courtroom activity for the month of December in that, but they're going to be moving their furniture. The judges are bringing their own furniture into their offices, which are all on the 3rd floor. And there's some other furniture that's going to be brought in. In fact, the jury chairs will be, the ones we have now will be moved over to that building along with some other miscellaneous furniture. The sheriff expects to move in the week of November 30th. And one change, a recent change, is that the sheriff, and I think it's a very good change, a very smart idea, and I'm really kind of pleased with it, the sheriff's decided to move their booking facility to this building. It requires some electrical modifications, that the sheriff is completely willing to pay for. I talked to Dawn earlier. We're going to require a contract amendment for the sheriff to essentially write the project or write the parish a check for that work. It's not a lot of money. It's like $18,000, but for the work that has to be done. But it means that someone from the sheriff's office will be in that building 24/7. And that was not the case before this, so I really like and applaud that move. I think it's a very, very smart thing to do, and I think we'll appreciate having somebody in that building all the time. There's going to be owner training and turnover, security training. That's not scheduled yet, but that's going to happen near the end of this project. So the booking center will be moved over in January, and that's about where we are now. The project's been on schedule for some time. The only hiccups on the project that will not impact the completion date has been the millwork. We've just recently made some changes to the height of the judge's wall in front of the judge's chair, but the millwork is behind schedule, but it will not, the contractor's done some workarounds, and it will not impact the final completion date of the project or the move-in. We haven't scheduled or talked about a ribbon cutting yet, but that'll be sometime early in the year, I expect. So please come and see the building. I think you're going to be pleased with the entire building and certainly with the council chamber, the conference room, the security involved in everyone coming to the council. I advised Ms. Cazzo about something that we've worked out, by the way, an arrangement where those doors behind the elevators that go up the stairwell will be locked. They can be locked, and I was concerned a little bit about people being able to wander around into the building during a council meeting when no one else is there, and I think we've worked out those kinks also. Very, very pleased with the work by Grace Hebert and by Lemoyne. I think I was, I don't know if I spoke to some of you about this early on, but I was a little bit hesitant about the whole CMAR process. I'm a real fan of it. But I think I'm a fan of it because of the people we had involved in it. We had an excellent architect and an excellent contractor. I don't think we could have wished for anything better. Very, very cooperative with us and always willing to do anything that needs to be done to accommodate the parish. So I'm open for questions if you have any questions about anything, budget or anything else.
Gentlemen, do you have any questions, any concerns? for Mr.
Yeah,
Javici?
please come and visit. I'm going to send some dates, but again, call me anytime. If you don't have my, I know some of you do, because some of you have called. John calls me quite a lot. Chase has walked through the building early on. That was quite a while back, but quite a lot has changed. So you'll be pleasantly surprised, I think.
If they
So
have
we'll set
walls, it's
something
definitely
up.
changed since I've been through.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Javici, you are doing an amazing job for us over there. We appreciate you. We're grateful. It makes a tremendous difference to have someone that we know we can have total confidence in overseeing this job for us. So thank you very much for what you're doing. So let's see what's next. Item number 7, the consent agenda. I noticed that item J on consent needs to be pulled from the consent agenda. And Senator, would you read the rest of the consent agenda, please?
Sidewalk agreement between Department of Transportation and Development and Ascension Parish State Project Number H010960 LA 30 roundabouts at Tanger Mall and I-10. Approval of change order to MA 1818B LA 73 turn lanes at Oakland Drive to add storm drain and catch basins, tree removal. Final quantity adjustments, total amount added $4,575.23. Approval of change order 1 LA 73 turn lanes at Brown Road to remove item 805-16-01400 reinforced concrete box culvert wing walls. Increase in saw cutting quantity, decrease contract amount by $14,446.08. renewal of the DPW surveying retainer contract at the budgeted amount of $150,000 to be split between BFM Corporation LLC, Bryant Hammett and Associates, Earls and Associates LLC, Quality Engineering and Surveying LLC, and T. Baker Smith LLC on a task order basis. Amendment to renewal geotechnical retainer contract, Gulf South Engineering and Testing, Inc., $300,000 total share among 3 consultants, project ENG 19026. Amendment to renewal geotechnical retainer contract, the Beta Group Engineering and Construction Services LLC, $300,000 total share among 3 consultants, project ENG 19026. Amendment to renewal geotechnical retainer contract, Arteman and Associates, Inc., $300,000 total share among 3 consultants, project ENG 19026. Resolution 2020 through 2021 priority for off-system bridge replacement program renewal. Approval to amendment number 8 to the H&TB master contract for general engineering consultant services, renew the existing contract through 12/31/21, as well as an increase to the contract in the amount of $350,000. Proposed budget amendment approval to move $1 million from the road construction budget to the Move Ascension program for additional design task orders to be assigned through 2021. Approval of the traffic calming protocol. Approval of SCADA contract with ICE Sales and Service, SCADA Support Service and Maintenance Project PUA 19001 for extension of time. Cooperative endeavor agreement between Ascension Parish Government and Jambalaya Capital of the World for marketing and public relations for a one-time payment of $20,000. Renewal of cooperative endeavor agreement between Ascension Parish Government and Ascension Economic Development Corporation to promote, encourage, and develop industry and commerce in the parish for the purpose of providing and serving the residents of the Ascension with greater economy and efficiency related to economic development. Total amount $322,800. Change order number 1 to the master contract between AP Fire District number 3 and McLinn Construction LLC for AP Fire Department Station 30 Training Room Addition for additional amount of $12,763.37 and an additional 95 days. Certificate of substantial completion for the Ascension Parish Fire Department Station 30 Training Room Addition, McLinn Construction LLC. Renewal of contract between Enmont Enterprises LLC doing business as Janiking of Baton Rouge for janitorial services at Lamar Dixon Expo Center and as needed for scheduled events per fee schedule for a not to exceed amount of $200,000. Approval of the renewal of the cooperative endeavor for use agreement My Permit Now with South Louisiana Planning and Development Commission for building and permit software work order and 311 module and web portal for GPS tracking July 6, 2020 through July 6, 2021 in the amount of $183,599.97. Bid quote items to accept lowest responsive bid or quote as follows. To purchase a new truck mounted jet rodder, Covington Sales and Services, Inc., $168,445. Contract services to provide specified LED sports lighting system and to achieve 50/30 levels when remaining poles are upgraded. Geosport lighting, $51,500. New construction of a pavilion for Station 30, quote request, McLinn Construction, $189,900. Ascension Parish Grounds Maintenance Services, RFP, H&O Grounds and Royal Estate Lawn and Landscape.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any desire to remove any item from the consent agenda?
Motion to
Mr.
approve with the exception of item J.
I have a motion by Mr. Cagnalotti and a second by Mr. Melanson to approve. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you very much. At this time, item 8A is the approval of an amendment of the ULDC Section 17-20043-B, Standards of Small Wireless Facilities and the Rights-of-Way in the Parish of Ascension. That is coming to us from the Utility Department. The members of the AT&T team, Stephanie Dwaron, David Aubrey, and Cody Grenier, I think are here today in case anyone has any questions of them. I want to speak to this. I was not at the Utilities Committee meeting that night, so I want to commend the administration and the committee for working together to get this document in its proposed state to the agenda. And I want to remind you that 5G offers very practical solutions to our current problems, like internet speed and connectivity. It will certainly allow for more connected devices in our homes, our businesses, and our schools. 5G will also offer unique, unimagined applications and solutions to problems that we don't even know yet how it's going to do that. Bright minds will help us to know what the real results of this technology are. At no time certainly has the need for this technology been more important. In this pandemic environment, it is important that we have the best kind of communication that we possibly can. We're educating our children from home in many cases, and all of us now have more devices in our homes than we ever dreamed possible. I can remember when my mother and daddy got the first color television, and now we have one of those little devices in front of us all over the house. So this is an important technology. I look forward to the discussion tonight, and I encourage each of you to ask any questions that you might have, make any suggestions, and certainly I hope that we can reach a consensus about how we move this forward. The lady and gentleman that are here are welcome and happy to answer any questions you have. Any questions? Mr. Robert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've worked with Ricky Compton and Stephanie and talked to several of the council members about this particular ordinance, and I feel like Stephanie and AT&T is kind of on board with it. I'll let them speak for themselves, though. Basically, the two things that I think would help the public's perception of this and help give back to this community and add something of quality to the community. Move the height of the poles to a 30-foot pole where you have a light affixed, an LED light, and any equipment, which the equipment is minimal, that they will have is to be placed over the light at the 30-foot pole. From what I understand, there's no issue with the height. Right now, the height in the ordinance states that there is a maximum height. So with some discussion and see what everyone thinks, I'd love to change that to where it was a standard height of the 30-foot pole with the light, and if they needed to go over with equipment, they could.
Are you putting that in a form of a motion, Mr. Robert?
If I
Or
will,
just,
yes,
just for
ma'am.
discussion
Yes,
at this
ma'am.
time?
Yes, ma'am.
So
I'll do
just
it
for discussion at this time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are there any other comments, questions about Mr. Lawler?
Yeah, I want to say I've worked with Joel on this, talked to Ricky Compton a bunch about this. I've talked to people within the administration and Mr. Ogeron about this also. I think we're coming to a pretty strong consensus here. It's my understanding that this is on the agenda. It is not. It has to be moved to introduction.
Correct.
That's what I believe we should do, because I believe that there are some slight tweaks that we can make on this. I think Councilman Robert has some good ideas. I've also spoken with Councilman Wagasback about some concerns with lighting in neighborhoods, making sure things, I guess, match what's in the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
We don't always want just one or two lights if we're not going to have lights all over. So I think we have a little bit more work that needs to be done on this, but I think that work can be done relatively quickly. So I'll make a motion to move this to the next council for introduction, and during that time that we can continue to work on this amongst ourselves with the administration and AT&T and come to a consensus.
I'll
at
second that
time.
motion.
So I have a motion and a second by Mr. Lawler and Mr. Robert to move this ordinance to the next council meeting in Donaldsonville. That'll be in Donaldsonville on the 4th, I believe, or 5th of November. And in the interim, to resolve any issues and propose amendments at that time. Those amendments, when you propose them, gentlemen, will be written
Yes, ma'am.
so that we understand what they are, and you will have gotten together with the folks from AT&T to make sure that it's possible for them. Yes, Mr. Robert.
And just to kind of sound on what Councilman Lawler was talking about with Councilman Wagaspack, we also addressed that today, myself and Stephanie. And I would love to see some language in there, because I agree completely. I don't want someone to have this pole on their property or in a subdivision where the homeowners association doesn't want the light. or, and I feel confident that we can work together to put some language in there and make it a public's decision.
Does AT&T have any comment they want to make tonight, or do you want to just work a little bit in the next 2 weeks and get together on the 5th? Thank you very much. Okay. Are there any further questions or comments? Mr. Mason?
Joel, kind of piggybacking on what you said about the lights going into certain subdivision with homeowner association, can we check, I like the idea of the 30-foot pole, but if it's in a homeowner association, they have regulations on how tall their lights are. Can we kind of?
Absolutely.
Can we kind of,
Absolutely.
okay, that's all, I just wanted to add that.
And Ricky, if it's okay, Madam Chair?
Sure.
Myself and Ricky Compton were talking about that. In fact, he's the one that came up with the idea of the height, talking about 40 foot. But for the majority of the parish lights throughout, they are 30 foot. But absolutely, if it's a subdivision, if it's something that has 20-foot lights, I would want to keep it uniform to make it, like I said, add quality to the community as far as aesthetics. In addition to all of the things you mentioned with the 5G and the network, and we know it's coming, and we might as well just do what we can and embrace it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Robey. I appreciate that. Mr. Melanson?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, so currently in the ordinance, we do have some provisions in there where HOAs they can submit, preferred locations, and it also states for the design of it that whatever company's using it, Verizon, AT&T, anybody like that, must use the visual aesthetic design elements. So there is language in there already helping us with this, and it's going to allow HOAs, I believe, any property owner, whether it be commercial or private, within 300 feet, is going to be able to submit preferred location maps. And if it's possible, at that point, they'll work with us. So I did just want to point that out, that Mr. Compton kind of, he addressed a lot of that on the front end. So there is some stuff in there, helping us out already.
Thank you very much for those comments. Mr. Lambert?
Yes, well, thank you. How many towers are talking about on the east and west side of the parish? Do they have those numbers yet?
Stephanie, that would be in your bailiwick.
That plan is still in development for Ascension Parish. We have a feel for what we think we might deploy, and it really varies by carrier, because these are used to supplement the macro towers, the big towers that you see, to provide extra capacity. So that's going to vary by each carrier. Can't predict exactly where each one is going to place what they need. It just depends on the needs of the network and the users in the area.
Thank you very much.
Just,
Go ahead,
just to
Mr.
finish up with this
Sure.
is, I made it through quite a few hurricanes here in the parish. And when you lose signal, OEP, Parish President's Office, even goes as far as the governor's office, you get people's attention when you can't get, make contact. So what I'm looking for is, the west side and the east side well covered with this, and I'm willing to listen to whatever else y'all have.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cagnolotti?
Yeah, and I'm just reiterating, this is not 5G. This is building to 5G, correct?
Right.
Yeah, so everyone understands. It's a stepping stone, but we're on our way to get together.
Right. There's multiple cellular technologies, 4G that you hear about, 5G, and there's a mixture that each carrier is using across their networks. Us in particular, I can speak for us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good point, Mr. Cagnolotti. Mr. Wagasback?
Yeah, this question's not actually for you, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
Her or not.
Can I ask her a question real quick before she leaves?
Yes, sir.
Do you mind? Mr. Melanson?
And is it safe to say, even if you did have a map right now, as population grows and as, new businesses, this network will probably continue to grow over the coming years and decades at the same time, right?
You're exactly right. It's going to change over time based on population growth, concentration of users, and that's a variable that none of us can fully predict, and that's why we constantly look at how to evolve our network.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Mr. Wagasback?
Yeah, I would make an additional request as we move to change this document, so it's 31 pages long. In addition to noting what the changes are, could we also note what it was changed from? I think that's important, as you review a document, understanding.
Yeah, we're going to ask the administration to please produce a red line version for us. So that, Ricky, I think that's going to fall on you. Whether you,
Look how happy he is.
yeah, no, I can see, you're grinning from ear to ear.
He's really good at presentations.
Yeah, and you're good at this stuff. Yes, Mr. Diaz.
So we can work under the assumption that no chairman or no council members are going to show up with amendment in their pocket at the last minute.
Well, I think
I
there's.
second that too.
We agree in that
Let's
Ricky's
not
going to
do
be the
that.
clearinghouse for amendments, because that is tough on everybody.
I-
No,
I-
let's not do that.
I would like to ask the councilman to please, if you have a suggested amendment, get that to the administration between now and the meeting. And that way, Mr. Compton will communicate with those who he knows are going to have some subtle changes they would like to make. And if you will check with the chairman of utilities, please, and see if there's anything that he would like to suggest, and put those in a red line document for us.
Yes, ma'am. So during the course of the past 7 days or so, I have met with several council persons. I've met with AT&T. I've met with the utilities chairman. And my intention, the version you have in front of you is version 4.5. When I get to version 5, which will be the ordinance that we introduce, it will be completely trackable with red line from the changes where you're looking at it tonight to what you'll see Thursday night. So there's some minor changes that AT&T has asked for with regards to a couple of timelines. There's a portion of a notification section we're going to tweak. We're going to look at the light within that part of the ordinance. So all of that will be indicated with red lines. My hope would be that a week prior to the meeting, we stop changing that document. So that,
Good luck with that.
well, what I'm getting to is
I hear you.
version 5, we want to lock in, so when I hand it off to Cinnamon, there's no more changes. You guys can obviously make recommendations at your council meeting. That's your right and your
That's
ability.
their prerogative.
But my plan is a week prior to the meeting to have the final version 5 that is in front of you, that we will have vetted, that hopefully we have a version that we like.
You might want to set that like Monday or Tuesday before the meeting.
Thank you very much, Ricky. I think that's a great idea, and I would encourage the gentlemen who want changes to make sure they get those in writing to Mr. Compton in a timely fashion.
By within a week, about 24 hours before the meeting.
Well, that's what we're used to. So, okay, so we had a motion by Mr. Lawler, a second by Mr. Robert, to move this forward with the, to the council in our November 5th meeting, excuse me. And so are there any further questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you very much. I thank the folks from AT&T for being here tonight. Item 8B, approval of USDA grant application to provide clean drinking water to the customers of ACUD number 1 and PUA. This was a Utilities Committee recommendation.
Motion.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Robert, second by Mr. Cagnolati to approve this item. Are there any questions? Mr. Melanson,
I'm curious what it is.
is there anyone who can address this issue?
We don't have any, no
Ms. John?
attachments, no packets or anything.
No, it's a good question, exactly what is before you, because it was an approval of a grant, but when it came out of utilities, and Aaron, you were there, and I think we were both kind of confused, it came out as a budget amendment, which I don't think is possible. But the bottom line is, this is a grant, a loan for 40 years, that's gonna cost PUA about $500,000 a year, and the money is just not in the budget to pay for it. Which means if you're gonna go forward with this grant, you just need to tell me where we're gonna find the money, whether it's out of recreation or the road program, to fund this program. The administration has met with Coach, and we're in a full agreement that this needs to be done. But our plan is in 2021 to replace the meters, which we think will generate additional revenue. And then once PUA becomes self-sufficient and can afford to pay this loan off, then in 2022 actually apply for the loan. The bottom line is PUA has lost money every year since we bought it. It was losing money when we bought it. And so we just can't afford it. Now, on top of this too now, there will have to be another $1 million purchase of an intake system. So this is not the only cost that we will be looking at. And the bottom line is, without an intake system, you don't have a water system. So that's got to be our first priority. So That's our approach, but if you guys are going to tell us to do this, you got to tell us where to take the money from.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Mr. Cagnolati?
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused. Approval of a USDA grant application. A grant is not a loan. Am I right?
No. This is a grant, so in order for us to get the grant, we have to first borrow $9 million. And after we spend the loan, we then get the grant. So we can't get one without the other, and that's a good catch. This is a grant application is what the language says. And we can't get that grant until we go for the loan. So you guys would have to decide if you want us to apply for the loan first. Does that make sense?
Mr. Lawler? Yes.
Yes, during the meeting, I voted no on this because I really do think it's premature at this time. Like Mr. Diaz said, in order to obtain the $8 million grant, we have to first spend $9 million, which requires a significant payments on that, which this water system is not making enough money to meet those payments. So we have no way of paying that money except for pulling it out of the general fund. And there are some legality issues with that, which we are not even sure that we can do that, as we have heard before. That's why I don't think this is the right time to do this. It's my understanding that from that last meeting is that the administration is looking at adding new water meters on the west side, updating those to ensure that we're recovering the right amount of proceeds from the water that we're selling. And every month we learn that we're not recovering the right amount of proceeds from what we're selling. So we're losing money already. So the first step, in my opinion, I think the administration has it right on this, is let's make sure that what we're selling, we're receiving money for. And that may recover enough that we can pay off this grant, pay off this loan so that we can then go forward with the grant if that's what we want to do. At this time, I just don't think it's prudent to say that we're going to spend $9 million and not have a way to pay for it. We wouldn't do that in our homes. I don't think we should do that with the taxpayers' money right now.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Lambert?
The water meters, who's going to install these? Our department or what are we going to do with?
We've okayed overtime for our department to install them, so it would be, I think the water meters were gonna be $210 a piece, and somebody was gonna charge us $175 to install them. We could do it ourselves, and so we've instructed Gavin and Ken to have our guys install them themselves.
As far as upgrading the pipe and stuff that's over there, how much of the $9 million are you gonna use for upgrading the system?
We're not using.
Are you using
We're
anything
not
to upgrade the
applying for the
system, or
$9
you just
million
changing
on
the meters?
We're just changing meters, and we're doing that with the money we have available. And so our plan is to change 150 meters out the first quarter, and then monitor how much more money we're generating. And I told Coach earlier today, I mean, by middle of next year, if these meters are generating enough money to pay for this loan, we can move forward with it. But you know, you get these numbers from engineering firms, and, you know, an engineering firm told us that if we raise these rates at this level, we'd be able to afford this, and look, we did, and they're not. So I want to see the numbers work first. And so after the first quarter, maybe the middle of next year, if these meters are generating enough money, then we can look at moving much faster on this. But it's you know, I just don't want to say that there's mixed opinion on whether these meters are going to generate more money or not. So we'll have to see. Well,
I have a little different opinion than my friend Mr. Lawler there, but we in something here that we need to, we're gonna have to move on it. I mean, I support the resolution, but, you know, there's some other issues out there besides just changing water meters. And I mean, I support, the resolution.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's other grants that we can apply for that does the piping and things of that. It's just until PUA becomes solvent and we can afford to pay the loan, where are you going to take the money? Is it recreation? Is it roads? Where are you going to take it? Because we got some legality issues, like Councilman Lawler said here. So where are you going to get the money? That has to be answered first. You can't pay it back a loan unless you know where you're going to take the money to pay it back. And we got to do the loan before we get the grant. There are other grants we can apply for that maybe not have this stipulation. And we need to look at that in the 2021 grant program to see if there's other things that we can do while we're improving the meters, while we're trying to get PUA solvent, and so that it can pay its own bills. And we don't have to subsidize it from roads, drainage, or recreation. Thanks.
Mr. Robert.
Can I make a secondary motion to move this to a council meeting and after the first quarter of 2021, maybe move it to March where we could have some more time to evaluate, look through this, start the work of changing the meters, maybe get something in here that commits to changing the meters before that time and continue with the process. That way it puts it back on the agenda to approve it if everything's lining up.
You
That's not the whole
can do
minute.
that.
That's not the whole minute.
You can make that substitute motion.
Thank you, thank you.
And I hope Cinnamon got that. I'm not going to be able to repeat it, I can
I
assure
just
you.
meant like the first sentence or two.
Exactly.
I'll
So I have a
second.
substitute motion, I have a second by Mr. Mason to move this item to our meeting in March,
After the first quarter.
after the first quarter. Okay, that'd be in April, in order to look at the results of the meters and also to give the administration some time to look at other grant opportunities that would not be attached to a loan. Is that, Mr.?
Yeah, Terry, one other thing too, just so Dempsey knows, and we've had this meeting with Coach, we've asked engineer to come in and look and see what we can do in increments. So if we went out and borrowed this full $9 million, it's gonna cost us an additional $5 million in interest. And so we're gonna see if we can't rank order all the pipe from the most damaged and the oldest pipe to the newest pipe and come up with maybe a multi-year program where we do $1 million a year, and then over 9 years, we haven't paid the interest, but we've addressed the biggest problems. And hopefully that $9 million over 9 years, makes us eligible for the grant. So we're working on other alternatives, but as of now, we just would prefer to do as we are.
Thank you very much. In the vote now is on the secondary motion, the substitute motion. Had a motion by Councilman Robert and a second by Councilman Mason. Are there any objections to the passing of the substitute motion? There are no objections. That motion passes. Now, does that do away, ladies, with the original motion?
Does it do away with the what?
The original motion, what happens to it? Tell me, while we have a parliamentarian here, let's.
Yes, there was a motion to approve, and so the whole thing is now going to the first quarter.
Thank you very much. If we've got a parliamentarian, we're going to work you. Thank you very much. I feel so much better than flying by the seat of my pants up here. Thank y'all so much. Thank you, gentlemen, for the good discussion and for the substitute motion. Item number 9, general business. This is the responsibility of the council to set the hours for trick-or-treat in the parish of Ascension for the Halloween of 2020. That is Saturday, October the 31st, from 6 to 8 p.m. And the chair would entertain a motion to approve. Have a motion by Mr.
Second.
Lawler, second by Mr. Wagasback to approve that Halloween trick-or-treat hours will be Saturday, October 31st, from 6 to 8. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. I would like to remind everyone to please trick-or-treat both physically, safely, and also be careful in the traffic out there.
I had a 6-year-old lobbyist hit me up today, was looking for an all-day.
She wanted all-day trick-or-treat?
All-day trick-or-treating.
That's great.
Did
That's
she
great.
promise you candy?
Absolutely.
He wants it all.
Item B, a resolution to appoint Infrastructure Director Ken Dawson to the Capital Area Groundwater Conservation Commission. President Quintemaux is recommending this
Motion.
appointment. Mr. Lambert has made the motion, the second by Mr. Cagnolati. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Ken, it's your job again. Item C, a notice to proceed on Limmerville Cutoff Road project. Councilman Thomas, Robert, Lambert, Ogeron, and Turner. Mr. Robert.
I've spoken with the administration, several of them, including Mr. Diaz, President Quintemaux, Joey Turo, and it's come to my attention that we could actually, and myself and Councilman Lawler have discussed it, do this job quicker and cheaper in-house. Now, I would like to discuss before possibly amending this to where we could push it back to transportation with the recommendation of putting it in the 2021 budget and starting work immediately, which Joey, if I could, well, if it's okay with the Madam Chair, if I could ask him a question on it, if that's possible.
You certainly may.
Yes, ma'am. I have a couple questions for you, Joey. I just wanted to, I suppose, go back over and be sure that what I just said is correct, that if we do this in-house, we can and will allot it to the 2021 budget. You said we'll start work as early as Wednesday?
Yeah, the in-house work, we're going to have a meeting amongst our crew, which includes our survey personnel and luckily, part of the work requires some right-of-way that we actually own, so that cuts out some of the process. But what we can do in-house is layout work, we can do clearing work, and we can start on that this year. The actual construction improvements on the roadway, including straightening the curves and making the roadway wider, that's going to be done as part of the 2021 road rehabilitation package. And I discussed that with Councilman Coach, that whenever that package comes about, it will be put first on the list. We'll put it in the contract that the contractors to work on that one first.
Okay. Well, with that said, I'd like to make the motion to move it back to transportation with the recommendation to make sure it's in the budget this year. I mean, 2021, not this year.
Thank you. So have a motion?
So it's a motion to refer to the Transportation Committee.
A motion to
Yes.
refer to the Transportation Committee.
Correct.
And I can make the recommendation, correct? Yes.
Okay. And I have a second by Mr. Lawler. Are there any further questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you so much, Joey. Great to see you. Good job, gentlemen. Item D, approval of a change order number 1 for 191 days due to COVID shutdown and inclement weather for the Council on Aging Wellness Center, Acadian Commercial Contractors, LLC, project number PM 19-01-006.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion by Mr. Malassaw, a second by Mr. Cagnolati to approve. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item E, presentation of the 2021 budget and the 2020 amended budget by the parish president and his associates, Ms. Gwen LeBlanc, and I believe Mr. John Diaz. And I also think that Dawn Caballero is going to participate in that. So thank you very much to all of you. Thank you for the very informative budget meeting this afternoon. We appreciate that, and we look forward to hearing your presentation this evening. John?
I'll start it.
All right. Ms. Gwen?
Excuse me. On behalf of President Quitmo, we would like to present the 2021 budget as well as the 2020 amended budget. The 2021 budget, operating budget, is based on conservative estimates with every effort to continue to provide the vital services that's required by our citizens. The largest source of revenue derives from our 3 sales tax districts for a combined total of $46.5 million, or 42% of the total operation budget. Ad valorem taxes accounts for 27% of our revenues, or $30.3 million. On the other hand, the 2021 capital budget is a very aggressive budget with funding primarily provided by bond and grant revenues received in prior years. The parish's credit rating continues to be AA+ as rated by Standard & Poor's Global. And then, as you can see, you have before you a budget summary. Assistant Treasurer Dawn Caballero will present this budget summary, and thereafter CAO John Diaz will conclude with comments. So I'll turn it over to Dawn right now.
Dawn, thank you.
And the mic.
Good evening. You have two things before you. One is this budget summary. It's just a little packet that I'm going to review. It'll give you an overall presentation of the budget. And then you have the budget book, which of course gives you line items of revenues and expenses for every single fund for the parish budget. And after the presentation, obviously, once you've had a chance to look over the budget book itself, any questions you have, we would love to take the time to explain anything to you that you might want to get some more information on. So if you turn to page 1 of the presentation, this is a comparison of the 2020 amended and the 2021 budget. The first items are the revenues, or the operating budget and the capital budget revenues. You can see that the 2020 amended budget, the revenues plus the required fund balance is about $159 million, whereas the 2021 budget has a revenues and required fund balance of approximately $191 million. Most of that, as you can see, is due to the required fund balance. And what that means is that is what is used from different departments or different funds, their fund balance that they have that we do either projects with or something like that. It balances your budget, basically. The expenditures for the 2020 amended versus the 2021. The operating expenditures are down for 2021, approximately $1 million, which is a good thing. And the capital budget expenditures are increasing, which of course means we're going to do, or attempt to do more projects. Page 2 gives you a graph of the operating budget revenues along with the required fund balance. The three largest sources of our revenues that Gwen has already mentioned are our sales tax revenues at $46.5 million, then property taxes at $30.3 million, and the third highest revenues we receive encompass our miscellaneous revenues, which are interest, earnings, licenses, permits, fines, forfeitures, and other revenues. That total for the required fund balance plus our operating revenues is about $111.6 million. Page 3 is another graph which shows you, it's depicted by function of government. The expenditures for the 2021 budget are about $107 million. The largest being, which you would assume, general government, and this includes judicial and legislative. The second largest is health and welfare, which is your mental health, health unit, and also your utility districts, which would be ACUD number 2, ACUD number 1, parish utilities, along with the planning department and building department. And the third largest one is our drainage departments, our drainage funds, which would be East Ascension Drainage and West Ascension Drainage at $18.1 million. The fourth highest is our public safety, which is our fire districts, our jail, and the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Pages 4 and 5 give you a list of all of the capital projects that are in the 2021 budget, and they are listed by the respective construction funds. You can read through them. They start with road construction, and it goes all the way through to the projects for park construction on page 5. And our total capital budget for 2021 is $84,451,000. The next page is just a graph showing you the capital revenues plus the required fund balance, along with the expenditures and which segment they fit into as far as expenditures, whether it's public works, road and bridge, public works drainage, or just other general government, which is recreation and our health. We're finishing up some projects there. And then, of course, public safety, we have some jail projects, and the fire districts have some projects as well. The next page, pages 7 and 8, this is a overall budget summary. And what this gives you, it lists the total revenues, total transfers in and out, and total expenditures along for every single department and fund in the parish, both operating and capital budgets. You then have in the next column, it tells you which department or which fund actually has an operating surplus or deficit. And then the next column will show you what our projected beginning fund balance at the beginning of 2021 is. And then the fund balance, of course, the last column shows you where we will end, projected 2021. and it breaks it down between the general fund, then you have the special revenue funds, debt service funds, enterprise and internal service funds, and then we have our total operating budget. That's highlighted in yellow on page 8. And then after the capital projects, you have a total of the capital projects budget, which highlights in yellow as well, and then you have the grand total, which highlights in green. So basically, looking at this, our total budget, grand total, is $151,516,700. That is what our 2021 budget is, and the projected ending fund balance for this 2021 budget, after everything is said and done, is approximately $161,636,000. The next 4 or 5 pages is actually the ordinance, which will be, we're asking for introduction of this ordinance to call for that tonight, and then it will be adopted on November 19th. So after you've had a chance to review all of these documents, if you have any questions or any concerns, we would be happy to address them.
Thank you, Dawn. Does any member of the council have any questions at this time for Dawn? I don't see any, Dawn. Hold on one second. We've got another piece of it to do. Ms. Gwen, would you go over the timeline for the introduction of this ordinance, please? It would be helpful, I think, for new councilmen to realize that this is done at a specific time in the year and
Okay.
for that purpose. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
And it's all in accordance with our home rule charter and Louisiana law. You have to, first, you prepare the budget, and we present it to the council per the home rule charter. It's the president's budget until he presents it to the council. Then after you review it and all, and we have to create a public hearing notice to be published in some of the papers and also, on our website. But it's a lengthy public notice, and it also has restrictions that, you have to publish it so long, but it has to be published so many days before you adopt it. So that's the process we are in now, and that's why it's pushed back to like November 19th? Yeah, your second meeting in November. Now, you have the right as a council to offer some amendments if you so choose before you adopt it. And then we may have a few that come in too, that we would present to you that develop during this process. So after you adopt the budget, though, finally, it has to be adopted by law and by our home rule charter 30 days prior to the start of the next fiscal year, which is, we're on our fiscal time is a calendar year, not a month, other month, like some of them are. Like the state has July to June, but ours is a calendar year. And once it is adopted, it becomes a legal document. Of course, because you adopt it by ordinance, it's a legal document. And the only way you can alter, it authorizes expenditures. So if it's not in the budget, you can't do it unless you go through the amendment to the ordinance process.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gwen. That's very helpful.
Madam Chair.
All right, let's see. The next part of this is Mr. Diaz.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. After Ricky's 92-slide presentation and Gasper's Grammy speech and Dawn's filibuster, I'm just going to tell you the same thing Henry VIII told each of his 6 wives. I won't keep you long. I just want to point out 2 things that are in this budget that you can't see just by looking at the numbers. And the first one is that one of our priorities when we came in as administration is to build a healthier, more professional organization. And so in this budget and in all these line items, we've essentially increased our allocated dollars to professional development by 25%. We've targeted mostly in IT with 113% increase. Then also DPW we've actually increased their professional development budget by 223%. And that's not classes on how to operate tractors. That's management and supervisory classes. And so anyway, we're excited, and we look forward to building a healthier and more professional organization. The second thing you won't see in this budget is the emphasis that we put on each of our department heads being a part of putting this budget together. A budget is your work plan. It guides everything going forward for the next year. And it was funny, when I sent Ron his budget 10-year history, he called me back within 5 minutes. He's like, "Diaz, I see what you see." I was like, "What is that?" "My payroll has gone up $5 million in the last 4 years." And I was like, "That's what you need to see. That's why I'm always turning down your overtime." So once again, we were excited that they all took an active role and really got to know their budget better. In fact, during the meeting before this one, Councilman Cagnolati had a great idea, and that is to have our department heads come to the finance meeting before the regular meeting and have each one of them present their budget. And that's how it's done in Baton Rouge, that's how it's done in Washington DC, and not that we should model everything they do, but I think it was a great idea, and I want to give Cagnolati all the credit, but so that'll give you the opportunity to dive deeper and ask a lot of questions. I know Chase, in fact, has a lot of questions, Dow has a lot of questions, and I know once you guys get to look through some of this, you will as well. So with that, I'll take any questions and then punt them to Dawn. So.
She hadn't had to hit you yet. Thank you very much. Are there any questions of any councilman? Mr. Cagnolati?
I think the intent, and Dawn mentioned it, is you got a huge book before you tonight, and he did a very good presentation earlier this afternoon with the staff and Councilwoman Caswell and myself, and take the book and look through it. And that's what they're asking you to do. And if you find anything in there that causes you concern, or if you have a question about it, Dawn, Gwen, and the entire finance staff will be available. They'll schedule a meeting with you if necessary, talk to you on the phone. So we're asking you to take the book, look through it. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call them and ask them. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, gentlemen and ladies, for the budget presentation. At this time, we will go to item 10, introduction of ordinances. A, introduction of an ordinance to amend the 2020 budget and to adopt the 2021 budget for the parish of Ascension.
Motion?
I have a motion by Mr. Melanson, a second by Mr. Robert to introduce. Thank you. Item number 11, an executive session. The chair will entertain a
I'd like
motion
to
to go
make a-
into that executive session.
I'd like to make a motion to enter executive session.
Motion by Mr. Melanson, a second by Mr. Mason. Madam Secretary, we need a roll call.
Where is? Y'all make this difficult on me.
His plexiglass is on the inside of his voting number.
last week?
You did that.
That was last week. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. We are adjourned to an executive session for item A.
I'm glad y'all had Corey blocked off.
don't have much to add these days.
The chair would entertain a motion to
Like to make a motion to reconvene?
reconvene. Thank you very much.
I would
Have a motion and a second to reconvene.
now like to make a motion to uphold parish president's termination.
Second that.
I have a motion and a second to uphold the termination. Madam Secretary, will you open the voting machines, please? And it is 8-1. Thank you very much. At
I would
this
now
time,
like to make a motion to go back into executive session.
thank you. I have a motion and a second to go into executive session. There'll be a roll call, please. Mr. Robert, you need to vote.
Oh.
Thank you.
Gonna push Corey's again?
Hey, we're gonna take a cruise around the D-Bill on the bus bank. I'm the best baker. The best baker. John.
There we go.
Surprised he didn't pull it out.
Oh, no, I wouldn't have been surprised.
That would have been awesome.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to plant that thought.
Don't give him any ideas. Don't give these bad boys any ideas.
I'd like to make a motion to reconvene.
We have a motion by Mr. Melanson and a second by Mr. Mason to reconvene.
I move that we provide authority to reach a full and final settlement in this workers' compensation claim.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Lawler and a second by Mr. Mason to settle with, as previously stated by Mr. Lawler. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Motion to adjourn.
Have a
Second.
motion to adjourn. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.